What's up, YouTube Madridistas? This is Kiyan Sabani. Today's clip is a compilation of two different segments we put together. So the first segment is Paul Pogba. Would he be a good signing? Does he make sense? How does he make sense? Would he make sense? All that stuff, tactical fit. And then part two of this, which I think fits in nicely, is about Real Madrid's future midfield. What does it look like from a tactical perspective? What is the best tactical fit? And we focus on the realistic signing, so we're not like putting together a midfield future of Kevin De Bruyne, reincarnation of Xabi Alonso, and the DNA and revitalization of Alfredo Di Stefano. We actually just stuck to realistic options that are attainable, players that are in the squad, players that we can possibly sign, and we looked at it from the tactical fit perspective and not just a lump of the three best midfielders in the world. So that's part two. As you guys know, I put out a poll on YouTube asking, like, what topic would you guys like to hear about? Because there's so many things we've been talking about in the past couple of days, and the options were Vinicius Tobias and what's his scouting report, Paul Pogba, if he would be a good signing or not, Real Madrid's future midfield. There were a couple other things. The most popular were the Pogba and, the other one was the Chelsea tactical fit. And that was probably the second most popular. But the Pogba and the future midfield were also very popular, and I thought maybe we could kill two birds with one stone and put them together. And I think that makes sense because Pogba, if he is a good signing, would actually fit into that discussion anyway. So I'll put it here for you. Exciting news. School of Real Madrid is coming back. Those of you guys who remember School of Real Madrid, it's a project we had launched a couple years ago. It was a Tifo football style series where we don't have access to footage because of copyright issues. We can't like show you film and do tactical analysis. And the ones who are doing it on YouTube are basically either not monetized, they're not making any money, or they're shadow banned, or they're just basically banned. And we just can't get into that. And so what we've done to get around that is we've hired an animator who is going to work with us to create animations so that we can narrate over them. That way we get around the copyright thing, and we're super excited about it. So the first project, or the first video of this project, the relaunch of it is going to be after the Chelsea first leg. And before the Chelsea second leg, we're going to do a tactical preview of the second leg while reviewing the problems or good things of the first leg. So that'll launch sometime between the first leg and second leg. You can subscribe to School of Real Madrid on YouTube to make sure you don't miss it. And also, I am planning on hopefully uploading the Chelsea tactical preview discussion on this YouTube channel at some point between the Celta game and the first leg. But I can't promise it because I'm going to be crazy busy. And we also have to cover the Celta game and maybe upload a discussion from that podcast if possible. I don't know. And on top of that, I got to drop my Chelsea tactical preview in written form, either Sunday or Monday. And then I got to catch a plane to London for the first leg. So there's a lot. That's why I'm saying I can't promise it. That's why you should be subscribed to the podcast just in case you don't rely on me. So that you don't rely on me to put these things out for you. If you're subscribed to the podcast, you'll never miss anything. You'll just get it to your phone and you can hear it right away. So do that ASAP. All links to everything in the show notes, the Apple link, the Spotify link, the Patreon link, so you don't miss anything. And what else? There's probably other things, but I'm done plugging stuff. It's been like 4 minutes I'm talking. So let's get to it. Enjoy today's clips. And let's go. Tahmid Kalam says, Tchouaméni said, you don't have to play for Manchester City or Real Madrid to play for the national team. To me, this means that he's going to take this first contract and sign for PSG. If I'm right and we drop the Tchouaméni dream, does Pogba make any sense if he agrees to come for a reduced contract? It's a different position, but a more natural Modric replacement. And like with Aubameyang, I'm about fulfilling dreams of wearing white for the right players.
Look, I don't think it does make any sense. I think you have to go for a Casemiro replacement and not another central midfielder. I really think that you need to avoid playing Camavinga as a defensive midfielder, even though, I don't know, people keep thinking that he's actually an option there for the future and all that. I think he's much better when he's given freedom to be a central midfielder and just do what he's best. So having Pogba on the team would probably for the next 4 or 5 seasons would mean that Real Madrid have Valverde, Camavinga, Pogba, and Kroos as the central midfielder, and we have to also acknowledge the fact that Modric is probably going to stay at least for another season. So I think those are definitely too many bodies for just two spots, and I don't think Pogba makes any sense now that Camavinga has shown this kind of potential, and also that Valverde is more and more demanding more minutes by his contributions on the pitch. So I don't think it makes sense.
I'd like to offer a different perspective. I think we often ask, how are you going to replace Modric? How are you going to replace Kroos? Can Camavinga and Fede coexist together? How are you going to create? How are you going to provide vertical passing? There's actually a question about this later as well. From an offensive perspective, a player who can play in midfield can also actually play deeper, but also more advanced roles. Can sling passes and passes over the top and through balls. Maybe at a level that only Kroos is better at on earth. I think Pogba fits the bill. And to me, there's a handful of players you would mention if you're trying to say who would replace Modric. It'd be like the Barellas, Jude Bellingham. Maybe I think would be an interesting player to kind of throw in there, although he's a little bit different. But I think he could also play that role as well. Then you have players like Bernardo Silva. From an offensive perspective, and none of these guys are going to replace his defense, but you get what I mean. Frankie, I think, is actually built for a role like this, but he's at Barca. But I actually think Pogba would be a great signing, ignoring everything else, the noise, the agent, the signing fees, maybe some of the problems. But I don't know if you saw Pogba's quotes recently, where he was just basically. So, no? I'm going to paraphrase it, and I apologize if I butcher it too much, but basically. He feels like he was just a little bit surprised and taken back and almost went into the depression at Manchester United because of the lack of organizational structure and the lack of a vision, and he just thought like everything is kind of all over the place and there's not really a good sporting vision in it. And he also feels like positionally lost a little bit. He hasn't been playing his preferred role and all that stuff. And I think
did he say which role is his preferred one?
He says, actually just pulling it up right now. So I don't have
he's obviously better. Yeah, I think he's actually better for sure in quote unquote Modric's spot, but I'm not sure if he feels that way. So maybe he feels better as a number 10. I don't know.
I don't know if he actually said the position definitively. Ragnick actually responded to what Pogba said, and he said, end quote, and if this is somebody like Paul who is flexible, he can play the 6, 8, and even 10. That's normal that he plays multiple positions, basically. But I guess my point is, I think if you go and interview every single Manchester United player one by one and give them truth serum, I think you kind of will hear the same story from all of them. And then it begs the question, what's going on there that, if you look at that team on paper and you knew nothing else, you'd be like, holy shit, this team should be a dynasty. It's insane, the talent on paper. No, but just look at the pure names on paper. It's incredible, man. They have so many incredible world-class players. But I think...
Do they, though?
Yes. I mean, why you don't think so? I mean...
Not really.
Okay, well, to each his own, but I mean, if you throw in that many talent, the problem is, I'm not saying that it makes sense tactically. I'm just saying an individual perspective, those names, Cristiano Ronaldo, even at this age, Paul Pogba, one of the best midfielders in the world at his peak, which I'm not convinced he's past it yet. Marcus Rashford is talented. Bruno Fernandes is talented. Jadon Sancho was one of the best young players in the world two years ago. If you ask me, that's a hell of a lot. I mean, Varane is Varane. I mean, you can argue and then you get some of the young, or just some of the talent in general, like the Alex Telles is, Luke Shaw. It's a really good team.
I'm not sure I would put one of them in a top 10 list in the world.
Okay, fine. But here's my argument. That team should be better than it is.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And
sure.
Part of the problem is I just listed a lot of good individual players, and the counter argument to this is really easy, is that it's not necessarily making sense on a tactical level to group these players together. So I think like when you talk about like whose fault is it, and some people will say, well, look at all these managers who have come and gone, and the core is this is the core, and no matter what, it's still the same. So probably the players are a problem. I don't think there's one culprit. I would just blame management and then say the group of players. A lot of these players would thrive in different situations, and I don't think it's necessarily their fault. I think you can fault them for certain things, maybe not buying in, maybe not working as hard in roles that are asked of them, maybe because they don't press as well. There's all those things. I'm not disputing that, but I also think that each of these players will thrive in a different situation. I think Pogba is one of those players. I think Pogba, and part of the reason I say that is because if you look at the French national team, he's a completely different player. He's an absolute demon with the ball. He's pretty much unstoppable with his passing and his range of passing. So I would, in a heartbeat, in a vacuum, I would sign him in a heartbeat, ignoring everything else. But the other thing that I didn't mention that also convolutes this a little bit is that Modric is still around. And it's kind of similar to like the Benzema-Haaland problem where everyone's like, well, Benzema's only here for a couple more years, so Haaland can just take over in a couple of years, and then it's kind of the same thing. Modric is still around. But this one is a little bit easier for me, and it should be easier for people in general because Modric is much older. Not much, but he's older, and he's going to retire probably in 1 year. And Benzema will probably take 2 years for him to move on. And I think it's actually an urgent need. And you can talk about how good Camavinga and Fede are, but it's a different profile.
It's a different profile, sure.
Camavinga and Fede, I don't know if they can be paired together, but if you pair one of them with Pogba plus a really good defensive midfielder who can play with the ball like Tchouaméni, I think that's a pretty badass team. I mean, you could go with an all-French midfield of Camavinga, Pogba, and Tchouaméni. I think it would work. You could also put Fede in there for one of them, and it would work as well. So I actually like this signing. That's my long-winded way of sorry for speaking for so long.
Well, yeah, but Kian, the question implied the fact that we are not going to sign Tchouaméni, and that's an important point.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay,
like if we sign Tchouaméni, we move on from Casemiro. Yeah, why not? Pogba, perfect replacement for Modric, experience, quality, all that. But I think it's definitely more urgent to find a replacement, a Casemiro replacement, or a player who can play that spot instead of trying to find which of our central midfielders is more comfortable in that spot whenever Casemiro is not available. Like, that's the important point of the question here. Like, would I sign Pogba, assuming we sign Tchouaméni? Yeah, for sure. I think he's, first of all, he's a free agent. And we know that Raiola will still require a pretty big signing fee and all, but it's also important to consider that he's a free agent. And again, I think he can be an important player for Real Madrid. I'm very impressed every time I see him playing for France. But again, the question implies that we don't sign Tchouaméni, and if we don't sign Tchouaméni and we sign Pogba, we still have, well, not the same problem we're having this season, but an even bigger problem because we have too many bodies for the central midfielder spot, I think.
I was so excited talking about Pogba that I completely ignored what the question was. You're right. So, yeah, Pogba is not someone who would replace the Tchouaméni profile. No, that wouldn't work.
No, and you would still have the problem. Like, yeah, you can play Camavinga as a central midfielder, and the fact, like, I would be worried if Real Madrid signed Pogba without Tchouaméni, because that would mean that Camavinga would be moved to the defensive midfielder position more often than what he should. I think we need to find a player who can move Camavinga to the central midfielder position more often.
Edward Sossman says, hey guys, I'm excited that we'll likely have Valverde and Camavinga for many years dominating our midfield. However, I'm still struggling with what type of midfielder should occupy the last spot. Is it a defensive-minded midfielder with strong passing ability such as Tchouaméni, or a deep-line playmaker like an Alonso Pirlo type, or a central midfielder such as Kroos, or lastly, an offensive midfielder such as Wirtz? What midfielder type would you go after? If you could pick any midfielder in the world, who would you pick? And would Paul Pogba fit with Fede Valverde and Camavinga?
Well, people excited about Pogba and the possibility of signing him. As I said before, I think that Real Madrid should focus on a Casemiro replacement and a player who can play in that spot in order to give more freedom to both Camavinga and Valverde. Although I realize that maybe a potential Tchouaméni, Valverde, Camavinga midfield in say 3-4 years time maybe would lack some creativity and overall passing ability. I realize that. So having a player like Pogba, more creative, or a more passing oriented midfielder, the way Kroos is, for example, will help. But this is probably not the way football is going right now. So I think that Tchouaméni is a perfect fits the profile perfectly in order to again accommodate more Camavinga and Valverde, who I think are good enough to at least be playing heavy minutes for Real Madrid in the future, and then possibly develop Camavinga's passing so that he can be more creative during the next few years, because I think he has the tools to become that kind of player, although obviously it will be very hard to replace what Modric and Kroos do with the ball on their feet. I would just probably need Camavinga to become a better passer, not just match Modric and Kroos passing ability, because that would be impossible.
Yeah. So I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think actually the prototypical player is probably Tchouaméni. I also think that if and I like if you had somebody like, let's say, I don't know, someone who can pass like Jorginho, I'd take Tchouaméni over that, because Tchouaméni can also do much more, and he's more mobile, and he's really good defensively. So I think Tchouaméni fits. Or even somebody like Brozovic. I'm not saying it has to be Brozovic. I'm just talking about like the profile of players. Somebody who can do a little bit of everything. I think Tchouaméni fits the bill. I also think that if you had like a Tchouaméni, Camavinga, Fede midfield three, they would actually pair really well with like a diamond midfielder who could help with the progressive passing ability. Like, let's say if you had peak Isco with these three, I think that would work beautifully. Or if you had Martin Odegaard with these three, it would work beautifully. And then you could just go with two at the top, one hybrid winger, like let's say, I don't know if you had just an Mbappe, Benzema up top. I'm just making things up right now. But like, I think if you had that midfield three with a roaming 10, like a peak Isco or like an Odegaard, current day Odegaard, something like that, which is obviously a lost dream, I think that would work really well. So you could actually pair these guys with a fourth midfielder, and I think it would work really nice.
I would also be intrigued. Like, I love deep line playmakers, as Edward mentions, like Alonso, Pirlo, Verratti, Varela, and the such. I love them, and I would be intrigued about playing one of those with Valverde and Camavinga, and not a more defensive-oriented player like Tchouaméni. But I realize that those players don't grow in trees, and it's very hard to find them. And it's very hard to even afford them. Like, I think Verratti would be unbelievable with Camavinga and Valverde. I think it's perfect. I think it's a perfect scenario, but I realize that signing Mbappe as a free agent and convince Verratti signing for Real Madrid will be too much for PSG. Like, it would be destroying the club too much. But a player, I don't know, a Tonali type of player before he kind of regressed a little bit, at least in his potential, or a Varela type of player. These Italian midfielders, who tend to play deep, the way Pirlo did for the last 5-6 years of his career, would be perfect with Valverde and Camavinga, I think. Also, like, I wouldn't be worried about that midfield as much as I would be about Tchouaméni, Valverde, and Camavinga, where I think that Camavinga would need to improve a little bit on his passing ability for Real Madrid to be consistent and produce consistently offensively. Like, my ideal scenario would be to have a quality, a world-class deep line playmaker like Verratti, for example. But again, that's not realistic at all, probably.
Yeah, I also think it's like worth noting. I mean, and maybe in the future that player that you speak of will be more apparent and available, and we just don't know who that is yet, right? But
Fabian maybe, but he also likes to go forward a little bit too much. I don't know.
I like Fabian, but I don't think he's the profile that you're.
No, he's not the profile for that position. Yeah.
I think it's worth noting because, like, just to put things into context of what we're saying, Fede, Valverde, and Camavinga are actually good passers.
Yeah.
They're reliable with the ball at their feet. It's not like we're talking about, like two midfielders with zero legs who don't work and it's just they can't pass. They're actually very capable passers. It's just that what you might lack if you pair those together is the long range ability to make vertical passes over a long distance like a Kroos would do. Because they both are, if you had to like highlight their weaknesses, and they don't have many, by the way, but if you were to highlight their weaknesses, it's their progressive passing ability, and just the ability to hit what the passes that Kroos does. So I think if you want, you'd be better off pairing them with somebody like that, so that you can kind of get the best of everything. You have a versatile midfield who's mobile and can get the ball up the field quickly in various different ways and have different weapons on the field. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, makes sense. But I think also some part, like I think, as you mentioned, that Valverde and Camavinga are reliable with the ball, but maybe not aggressive enough with their passes or creative enough with their passes, and that's probably my main concern when you're probably facing. And you're probably going to dominate 80% of the games you're going to play throughout the season. So having a Verratti type of player, a Varela type of player playing deeper, and then Camavinga and Valverde pressing forward and being more vertical whenever they have the ball would be my ideal scenario if Real Madrid were able to find that kind of player, which is very tough at the moment.
Well, I like what you said too about Camavinga and like the risk factor with him to make more risky passes. I think that's the biggest thing he needs to work on. Is I remember kind of scouting him earlier this season too, and the way I worded it was he needs to learn when to accelerate and when to decelerate, because funny enough, he actually is risk. He takes risks in the wrong situations and then shies away from it in the situations where he needs to. Like, so for example, if he has a lane to dribble the ball like 20 yards up the field or hit a pass, he often tends to turn around and do the safe pass. And then other times where he's like deep in our own half, where he just needs to play the safe pass, he starts to try to dribble out of three players and then we lose the ball. And I think he just needs to learn when and where to take those risks and how to take them. That's, I think, something he's going to have to work on.
Right.